I don't know why I just clapped. We're not action.
Yeah,
we're lighting up our voices.
I was doing flamenco.
I am trying to figure out how to stop my computer from whirring. That's why you can't see my hands.
I was praying.
I can rarely see your hands on this stream. They're usually
This is
beneath
true.
there.
I can never see your hands. Well, sometimes when you lift them.
Well, that's why that's why I'm like this instead of like sitting up. I mean, I'm like trying to stop my computer. My computer's like making a really annoying whirring sound.
With the background, it's not as
It just looks like you're ducking under that bridge.
Jeff, if you want, I have a lot of that egg crate baffling material. If you want to do a pass off, I can give you some.
Oh yeah, now there's a really nice annoying noise happening. That's great.
But I took it away.
Oh, good. Jeff, I assumed your hands were moving so fast that we couldn't see them because you were always like practicing kata.
He's moving so fast.
I haven't done
can't
that
track
in
his
years.
movements.
DBZ-esque level. What's up, guys? What's up, streamers?
Hi, everyone. Hi, wife. It's the end of the year.
Again.
It's the end of the stream as we know it, except for
it's kind of more like the beginning
of the stream as we don't yet know it. It's fine.
More.
Well,
we have a new name for a new format of the stream.
That's what we
were just talking about.
As the stream makes its way towards podcastery, we're talking backstage a bit about potential rebranding of it. And one possible name that's come up is a term that's used quite liberally inside the game itself, the Questing Network, which seems to be the popular vote for renaming the stream.
We did vote before we started it, and it's my pleasure to announce that our podcast's name is Viacom Presents Jumanji, a wholly unowned and untransferable subset of the Stillfleet Studio, a podcast stream.
Premiering on Amazon soon.
With Robin Williams.
Please don't sue me. No one sue me. None of these people.
My name is Jeff Bezos.
As the mind behind the Sometimes Kingdom, I just want to say I'm completely legally distinct from every single thing that's been said in all of these people. Sue them, not Ethan. Sue them, sue all of them.
You can sue me. You're not getting shit.
Yeah, I've got nothing to give you. In fact, I have so much nothing. I could sing Whitney Houston right now, and it wouldn't matter.
Damn.
Get it? I have.
You're gonna have to go after wife if you want to go after me. You have to go after every one of my friends. If you want to get to me, you have to go after them first to make me feel pain. Because going after me, nothing. Go after any one of my friends. Wife, Ethan.
Holding me back. Keep holding me back.
Holding me back. You'll have to go through every single one of my friends and family and pets.
If you want to hurt any of us, you have to kill all of us.
Yeah. At the same time, or we respond like an annoying boss.
We actually have connected. What was that thing in the David Lynch Dune movie, The Heart Plug?
Oh yeah.
Plug.
Is that a Harkonnen tech, or is this a Fremen thing that I
think
forgot?
it's just David Lynch.
I thought David Lynch invented it and implanted it in all of his actors.
I thought it was a.
Oh, it's an actual thing. Yeah, that happened.
To this day, Stewart doesn't give a 100% performance and stuff. He dies.
Still suit. Yeah, still suit.
Still suit.
Well, so this is the final Sometimes stream, but now renamed the Questing Network of the year. But we'll do more.
The end
next
is
year.
the beginning.
And it's a new name, so that's like item number 1. Is that
check?
mentioning?
Well, I guess the podcast version is going to be the Questing Network.
Oh yeah,
this will be the Sometimes stream, but the quest is called the Questing Network.
Oh, I see. And then we could actually.
I guess theoretically, the podcast could have other actual plays on it since it's a network.
Sure.
It's meta. So series 1 is called the Sometimes Stream because it was sometimes streamed. And then what is series 2 going to be called in the new year? That's a good question.
The Sometimes
Heard, but like HERD instead of
the Always Rivulet.
The Always Rivulet.
I like the sometimes heard because we all become cows,
Yep.
and then it's really just sort of like a slice of
Grazing.
life cow
Yep.
politics podcast.
What if
Where are each of us going to stand in the field? What
Welcome to the bovine dominion.
that's the Beef and Dairy
Mhm.
Network? Ben.
Vaca, vaca, vaca.
I haven't heard that term.
We could be called the Recurrence.
the recurring
Okay,
strain.
bad. I guess bad. Never mind.
I'll say more.
No,
Whoa,
it was dramatic. I was
It was
like,
dramatic.
ooh,
We
the
were taking the
recurrence.
beat in.
It sounds like a
Yes.
British murder mystery show that I would watch on
Yeah.
Amazon Prime late at
Or
night.
a sequel to like Divergence.
Oh yeah.
Insurgents.
Recurrence.
The recurrence.
Recurgence. the divestiture story. Well, some other
Metal
things.
Gear Solid recurrence, gents.
Stop building the Metal Gear. Why do you keep rebuilding the Metal Gear? It keeps recurring every time you beat. It's fine. Anyway, one of the other items on this sometimes chatty is talking about the new magic system that's been implemented. That was implemented for summer, and heretofore is going to be the system of playing the Sometimes Kingdom RPG. I guess then the next item after that is talking a little bit about the exciting soon to be released early access edition of the Sometimes Kingdom RPG, featuring that magic system that everybody should try talking about now. But only at the same time. Everybody start talking over each other right now. And the thing about the magic system is that it's really for fantastic walla
I really
walla
like
walla.
music
yeah.
game.
No,
Magic
it's got all kinds of
music
stuff.
game because then I name it.
Yeah, well, I think we covered that pretty well.
What did everyone
Yeah.
say? I just sang Kesha songs from like 2010.
I just thought I liked it.
Speaking of getting sued,
I didn't say anything.
I didn't say anything.
well, I said nothing about nothing.
I will say,
Wake up in the morning feeling like Goldini. Sorry.
I love it.
Sorry, it was an intrusive
touched.
thought.
I'm touched, and thank you for sharing it. Erica, what were you saying?
That was beautiful. I was just gonna say, as someone, so I had the benefit of helping to imagine and realize this new magic system and work through creating it, but then also play with it afterwards. So it was really fun to anticipate what play would be like, and more so what it would be like to experience other players, and then have that come to fruition with this group of people having already played another version of the story with the same characters. And it was really fun to watch you all explore what your characters would do, or how you would think, or how you would combine these words to make what you wanted happen, but do it the way your character would do it.
Yeah, I think it definitely felt like a little more of a challenge maybe than picking something off a menu. And I'm wondering if other people think that's good or bad. I think it is good because you can do anything you want, but it is like a little more cognitive burden to kind of articulate that. And then the GM has to like match it to something, but I don't think it was bad or hard. I think it was just like, maybe I used spells differently because I was like, do I want to go through this whole thing right now? But I don't know. Yeah, I'm curious what everybody thought. Also, yeah, like to Erica's point, how did it change your character? That is a good question. Like Bessemer kept brain candling.
I for one am grateful for that, partly just because it went from this spell to a frequent use to a narrative point to in world or in narrative, like other characters being like, oh, then when it came back around again, in episode 4 of the summer season, it felt like there was like, just, she's gonna say it, when's she gonna do it? When's she gonna do it?
She has to do it. Like, it's her catchphraise.
Yeah.
I switch bodies with the.
I have to do it, and to any effect, it's really, it definitely is a compulsion of Bessemer's. It's not anything shy of or more than that. But it was fun to use that part of her to then be like, oh, if I'm not if I'm not brain handling, like what would I want to be able to do? And then looking at the words that I have and seeing like, okay, I want to be able to do something like this. I don't really have a word that does that, but the closest thing is this word. And then looking through what else you have to choose from and like seeing options or opportunities or other spells that could be, it kind of felt like going through the library of Interstellar, like, oh my God, these are all of the different versions of how things could go or how it could be, or which was really fun to play. And I felt less beholden unto my grit too, like had an easier time using it and then regaining it. So I felt like I had more opportunity to try stuff too, I guess.
I mean, yeah, I will agree. Like it was very fun trying out new things because like, it gave Fasole a lot more that he could do because of the very restrictive way I created him. Like I created him as a character who couldn't do half the things that he's supposed to be able to do.
Right, making a demon knight, like, so then he's like not just a tank, he's a super tank who disdains using weapons, like,
yes,
on a deeply moral level, like as a culture. So
yes,
like, yeah.
And what that sort of became in gameplay was, okay, well, he's not the kind of knight who uses a sword to hit things, which is the main thing that knights do, and half the powers that they get are involved in hitting things with a weapon, and demons can't do that. They're not allowed to use weapons. And so it's like, okay, no, he just takes really hard hits. He takes really hard hits all the time for other people because that's his whole thing.
Yeah, what is with the new drive system? What is Fasole's drive? Like what is his personal personal sort of drive for being part of the Question Network and doing all
I
this?
think utility.
That's cool.
It sort of felt like, he sort of dreams of being like these like 4 great wizards, and being sort of a hero of everyone. And it's like, well, yes, because they are, to his knowledge, keeping the world from falling apart, and that is a utility.
That's super cool, and it's nice because it's like narratively, like it's Fasole who's stopping the world from falling apart.
Yes,
yeah.
And then getting all this magic that's like not powers from a menu was interesting because it still took that kind of thing that I created, and all the spells that I'm making still do those things that are sort of central to him and what his character is like and the kinds of things he wants to do. But it's with a bit more freeform ability to do stuff.
To I think White's point about the cognitive load of it, I think like the hope generally of this, and I think that like this next year of playtesting, like version 1.0, or I guess at this point 2.0, is like exciting for me doing dev on it, because I really want to see, like, especially since like cognitive load is a real big important thing of mine to like be respectful of, because I have the working memory of a carrot. So like having the broad sort of mechanical tables, like, you've got all these cool big fancy, like some sciencey, like occult sounding words that you can sort of pick off the menu to try and like make what you want happen. And then there's like a schema for organizing it, that in terms of like what you want to do with it, that's spelled out. And then also for the GM to help players and players themselves, if they want to, like, there is the actual like, mechanical scheme of like how wide a series of effects can it create, like how broad, like is it a room, is it an object, is it like even larger than that, like how many people can it operate on, like how much damage can it do if it's a combat spell, how many people can it protect at a time, or how many people can you move if you're using journey magic. So it's like that section is complex, but I think the nice part about it is that like you don't need that information until the moment that you need it, and then it's there like when you need it, and it's very formally spelled out. So it's that challenge of like trying to make a system that is like fun and freeform, but it's like limited enough that like it is rational and rationalized in a way that like you can figure it out as a player, and then also sort of like gets down into like, oh well, this is probably how it's organized in World 2. Like it's cool, I think, that we sort of stumbled onto like it very deliberately, but like honestly, like it worked out pretty great, and that's very fortuitous. where what is happening in world is also how the mechanics operate too. And I think that's neat. That's very, like, personally to me, like, very meaningful. To the point also of cognitive load, I'm almost imagining there being, like, there could be an additional supplemental PDF or even just a Google Doc to start with or something like that, that just has more examples of spells. Like, so it's literally like spell books of like possible things. So if players are truly flummoxed by it, they can be like, oh, well, let me look at chapter 5 of Amon's Spookadex, which has like undead spells in it. And there's a fun list of things that like give you ideas. And after you use them, you can just keep using that, or like have training wheels off. And
I mean, you could literally pick those words and then just use those spells. Yeah.
Use those spells, yeah.
Or
Yeah,
pick
yeah,
those words
yeah.
and put different magic with them. Like,
Totally.
And I know Ethan and I talked a lot about, because Wythe, I hear you on the cognitive load thing, and that is something that I remember sharing a lot about, like what parts of playing tabletop RPGs felt challenging. To me, as someone who likes games but is not a gamer by any essence of the phrase. I mean, I guess now maybe.
Yes, you are now.
I broke it. Oh wow. But it was a lot of times the way that I process or organize information is not the way it would be presented in the game itself or in the tools that were provided to access. So we've talked a lot about, like, what are the different ways to organize this information? Can we put it out there in ways that, in more than one way, so that it can be accessed or processed the way that a player needs to in order for it to be accessible to them, but then also making sure that the tools that we make available are a little bit more customizable as well, so that if you are looking at just saying like a character sheet, having one sheet laid out the same way is not going to be helpful to every single person. One person's going to want to have stats right up in front of, on the top of things, and one person is going to want to have a process flow chart for what to do when a certain action comes into play, or blah blah blah. So making those conceptualizing those and thinking about the different ways to think about what we are thinking about, so that then we can make tools that make all of this more accessible to different types of players and thinkers. Because the cognitive load is a really big hurdle to why people don't get into playing games that they would love. And so we want to make that a lot easier when we can for this game.
I have to read a whole book to play a game. Yeah, no, I mean, but like truly.
Even one page, I'm like, I love reading things, but working memory, geez.
And like, I think that's the other big sort of change for the like official early access edition. One now sort of starts learning about the world. There's a backstory about the lore. There's a cool little story about the distant past, and then it just jumps right into the questing network. And you build your character, and in building your character, you discover the world. But you don't, like, as you're choosing those menu options to like decide what your character is like and who they are and what they do, every other piece of information you can immediately jettison. So in the act of just like putting together your character, you're already sort of like over the hurdle of absorbing whatever lore you want to, or like finding out the lore that's exciting to you. And then, honestly ditching the rest because it's not relevant to your character. You're going to meet people from other seasons. You're going to go to another season on a quest. You're going to find out about that in time, and it can sort of unfold a little bit more naturally.
Just like being alive.
I think also to complement the other games in this system, they are sort of along the same idea of like, there's a big book that you can read that has a lot of stuff in that you would read in a book, but also the core concepts are pretty simple, right? So like the original game Stillfleet, like I think about the charts in the quick start in the book, which are basically, a unfolded picture of each die type. So a D4, a D6, a D8, and then just like how many of the faces are successes versus failures in a standard roll. Because it's anything over 5 is a success, and then it visualizes for you, okay, the bigger die, I want to use that one, because then I'll get more success probability. And it's an easy thing that like you can just go back to and look at the page and be like, okay, I'm looking at an image that tells me instantly what this is. Blister Critters does something similar. That's the like Looney Tunes post-apocalypse game, in that it has a tree of powers that you can get as you level up, and you basically start in one of 4 branches, and then you can travel through this like flow chart essentially of what powers you get. And it's the blister tree, and it's one double-page spread in the book. It's great. I go back to it when I'm playing because I'm like, oh yeah, where do I go from here? Great.
Yeah, and I think some of that information density stuff, like when we talked on Why We Roll with Luke Gearing, he's talking about in Mothership trying to take each page and can you make it half a page of like bullets or like 1/4 page diagram? And like sometimes the answer is no, but sometimes it's like, oh yeah, actually this is really mechanical, like reference manual stuff that can be bulleted. It's not like beautiful sci-fi prose, which in the Stillfleet world, we do it both, but we tend to set the beautiful prose off in a way where visually it looks more dense so that you kind of know, in my mind, like you don't have to read that to play the game. And then the other stuff is like bulletized or bigger or whatever, easier to read. And I think we can do a better job of that. I think that was like also a learning experience. But I'd like with Sometimes Kingdom, maybe when we move from the quick start we're about to release to the full book, that's something, Ethan, we can all pay attention to, is like what information is this stuff you reference the most? Because that's not exactly how we asked it in developing Stillfleet.
Right.
And I think that would be cool to know, frankly, like what do you use? How do you use it? And we'll make that bulletized big font, like a whole page of just like, these are the rules in one page. And then everything else can be like, oh, there's this zany thing about like people who grow sapient hot dogs on this one island of summer or whatever the fuck, you know,
which is right? Canon now. Yeah, no, and I think that's a really great, like, it's a cool design opportunity, and it's also a cool opportunity because like part of designing this stuff and like why I've been so jazzed about doing, you know, the Sometimes stream, like also as a playtest, is like this is the playtest that sort of like helped figure out a lot of like the early sort of like stress points of like, oh, let's make it feel a little bit more like this. Let's make this part a little bit easier. Let's amp this part up again. Like if it's a high fantasy world, that's got to feel like magic-y, wagic-y. What do we have to do to like get there? And I do think that like the advantage of having the seasonal skills of magic now be this magical word table is you only need to care about the words that are on your table of magic, but really the whole shebang, you know, fits on one piece of paper, and all the words that you would ever need to cast magic fit on an index card. Yeah. So like, you know, and granted, like a lot of them are some big words, but you don't even need to learn them. You just reference the table, you know. So it's there when you need it and not when you don't.
And it's always a trade-off with table lookup, because I don't love table lookup, but in this case, it's just meant to be a reference where you could play it, completely make up stuff, whatever you want, or you could have written spells like D&D, which still is kind of a lookup thing. It's just like a book entry lookup. But the table lookup is this in between where, you know, it can allow you to make up your own stuff and still have crunch of whatever level you want, like very strict or like not so strict, but it helps you at least get like, you know, kind of like levels of 10. Like, is this, like you said, is it a thing that happens to a bread box? Does it happen to the room? Or did I just blow up all of New Jersey by casting the spell Iranian drones or whatever?
But they're also, right, exactly. They're also predictable tables because, you know, you come up with the words that you're doing, and with the words you come up with, this is what I actually want to do, right? Like I come to the Ruby compartment with like, I want to make a room that these people can't get in, so we have extra time to do what we're doing. That's like what I did in that episode. And so then, you know, the giant birds had to like hit the thing a bunch of times while we were like having a frantic conversation inside. And honestly, then I used the combat column and the like space column to figure out how much space and damage I needed and how much grit I'm spending. But that was super clarifying also, because then that like just like we threw in a couple of additional sentences just to make sure with that use case, it's like, well, you know, all the rules lawyering that you can imagine happening like collapses itself into like a very useful conversation. Like, oh, this is it's not affecting the environment, so it's not an environment spell. It's still a combat spell because it's just defense. And like, you know exactly how much like defense that cube has, which for me as the GM was super helpful because I knew like, you know, how many bird tower, rook, stone, beak strikes it was going to take before it was shattered. And, you know, it then immediately clarified that like once that thing is destroyed, it's gone because it's a magic Ruby cube. It's even in the words. But also there is, when you need a physical scale of something, there is a table of physical scale. If you've spent this much grit, this is how big the thing can be.
That's the hope anyway. I think it'll be fun to publish the quick start, see if we can get people to play it, and what about it might resonate. I'm also thinking of people who are used to playing fantasy games that have slightly different things taken for granted or use different rules but are still fantasy. And I think there's two axes. One is like a rules thing, because the rules aren't that hard, although the magic may look at first very different, because it's not choosing a bunch of things from an encyclopedia. It's looking at a big table and like thinking about the kind of effect and just kind of finding like, all right, I want to spend this much to, make it affect the room, not just the box or whatever. And then the other dimension, which you could talk about, is just like the world and like how can we pull through the differences in the world and build out the world. So that's been fun as a player to hear how y'all have we've learned about the world through the eyes of the players. I'd like to do that more, frankly, going forward, is like, what are, like Hursut and Fasole's kind of family structure and like their relationship to the other skeletons and demons, angels, like there, there's like mysteries of Bessemer and like, where did she come from? I think there's so much there.
I want to know that.
And I obviously want to write the spin-off show about DCI Beans as before he was a skunk.
Skunk Gendarme, the DCI Beans story.
But I want to find like time skip Beans, who is like having to come back to being a cop after going fully feral.
I love that. I want like 3 seasons of HBO. Thank you. Pick it up.
Doesn't he just keep getting fired and rehired by just a different district?
But that's like every cop show. That's like every platinum TV cop show. Yeah.
You're a feral. You're a feral. Shoot from the hip, skunk. You're out of here.
It's got to be the same district, but they get a new chief of police. And you just get rehired and fired by every single one.
I think the chief is increasingly weird. Like at one point, the chief is like a full blue whale just in a tank, and there's like a moaning sound, and it's translated as like, "God damn it, Beans," and it's
And one day it seems like I'm your boss, but not really, and you can't figure out why.
Alternatively, I hope it's revealed Beans didn't have to become feral. He just convinced himself to.
Canon.
Oh, like turning into an animal doesn't
animal
make you an animal.
Fine about it, except him.
Because
he starts pissing everywhere or something. I don't know.
Well, the freedom offered by being a talking animal. Yeah.
I was kind of playing it as the show Luther, but instead of like Idris Elba's character, the titular eponymous Luther, becoming like feral in terms of like, I can't be in the Metro PD because it's like too, it's a straitjacket socially. It's like, no, I'm literally becoming a skunk. Also, I was never tall or competent or good looking or any of that. I was like, a scummy, like Quebecois, like middle manager type of a cop who then became a skunk and now is like maybe a good guy. I don't know. But that was the inspiration, was like, it's all of their shows have that same arc. I watch a lot of British crime TV and they all have the exact same arc. It's the becoming feral arc. They just don't literally become animals, which is clearly a mistake.
Well, right. We're talking about Idris Elba, like one of the most beautiful men in the world. And it's like, okay, now what if he was a fucked up little guy?
What if he was just a little birthday boy and that little birthday boy was a skunk? I don't know. Mysteries abound.
That's so there's a lot of characters, character background, and maybe that relates to the magic. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe that can even get factored in, Ethan, somehow to the rules or the book or whatever. Like there can be lore bits based on characters. I always like that stuff.
I would love that. If people are amenable to throwing it in, we're gonna do call out boxes talking about that stuff.
Make everything about me, please. Thank you. And your
Bessemer, the Bessemer story.
Well, it's a lot better. D&D had Marco Volo or whatever, where it was like very clearly this Orientalist, like, a dude from fantasy Europe travels to fantasy the other places. So we could definitely do better with like Bessemer, a lady maybe from Earth or person from Earth, like travels through this weird, anyway, it makes sense.
Where in the world is Bessemer Neversing?
I don't know if you've been listening to the most recent Rude Tales of Magic season, but they have a occasional segment called Wealthy Poor Son's Almanac. And basically they're like 5 to 10 minute episodes where this guy who's like, I'm one of the wealthiest people in the Underdark. And I realized that other people don't know everything about the world because they haven't been able to travel it. So I'm writing an encyclopedia of everything. And so it's, like they just come up with sort of a stupid idea for like a creature or something. And then they talk about it for 10 minutes. But it's fun.
I love
it's
that.
cute.
I like the idea of adding those like infotainment like factoid bits in there, because like with Season's Keep and the Sometimes Kingdom, it's stupid creatures all the way down. It's all stupid all the time.
Yeah, but it's also from an unreliable narrator. So you have like, okay, well, this is like a rich guy traveling.
So good. It's like a traveling Matt from Fraggle Rock, except rich and bad at his job.
I would like to take this opportunity to just out to everyone, like there are parts of the year where Ethan and I are meeting for at least a couple hours once, if not twice a week. And the volume, not the number, the volume of times that I've said, what if something stupid? And Ethan goes, actually, there is and this thing is already stupid and incorporated into the whole. It is so frequent.
Stupid Incorporated. Stupid Incorporated could also be a really great, if yeah.
Is that my new band name?
I would listen to the crap out of that.
Is Stupid a backronym?
Yeah.
Oh, is that the anti-questing network? Is that like Team Rocket? It's sorry, the usual people involved died or something. I don't know. It's the bad guy team.
That was really good. Oh my god.
That's actually perfect. Yeah. Yep.
Ding.
Okay.
That's the sound of them launching into the stratosphere with the little pinprick of light.
Truly, that bacronyming that you just did, Wythe, was like as impressive as like Wayne Brady's song improvisation.
I'm here to second that, and that's a big statement.
I do have a question for Jeff Blake. What was that? Sorry.
Special guest season 2. Don't let people know.
It's all a secret. It's a secret. Wacky side quest villains. Jeff, I had a question for you as your suit. As a skeleton character who has decided to be disgusted by magic. Like, is there a general sort of feeling that like the skeleton's not spamming magic? Is that still satisfactory with like play? Having
I think it's fine.
It's been fine. Cool.
Yeah, because like I think it's it's pretty funny one. The other thing is I get to see y'all do the magic, and isn't that the greatest gift we could have?
Yeah. Just sitting there with popcorn, watching everybody make increasingly outlandish decisions.
Mm-hmm. Also, to make it easier on you, honestly, I think maybe 4 people doing it constantly would be a little bit, I don't know. Not sure.
It's just bananigans. I guess it would be bananigans times 4. Bananigans times 4! Always comes back to Dragon Ball.
Yeah, times 4 instead of times 3.
Banana can.
Do what?
Kaya what?
Kaya can. Kaya, please. Yeah. What else do we wanted to talk about? I guess there's a sort of like just a freewheeling conversation about like I admit Will Wonders Never Cease, the summer quest, the plot got a little bit away from me. That definitely happened. I was dealing with like a lot of health issues trying to write this one, and I feel like it got a little bit overstuffed for the finale. There were so many things I wanted to get to before the end of the year. And I feel like it started becoming a little picaresque, a little lore dumpy, a little hard to follow. I just sort of wanted to get everybody's like general experience with that.
I mean, it did feel like the world got bigger because suddenly we were somewhere where we actually couldn't fix everything with like all the like the shambolic troops doing wars on behalf of a guy who we like knew didn't tell them to do that, probably. And so it became a like, oh, we actually cannot fix all of these things because this is a world in which we are one small part. So we can only fix the one small thing that we were here to deal with.
Yeah, did you find that sort of like that moment of helplessness, was it like cool narratively, or was it like ultimately kind of frustrating? Or maybe frustrating in a good way. I don't know.
I think I wasn't like particularly frustrated because at least in my character's mind, hey, once you start stabbing, eventually it will work out. And then at some point, I presume at some point we clock out.
Yeah, it's
and we go home.
Yeah, the general idea was like, and for that I think it does share similarity to Stillfleet, in the sense that, like, there are worst case scenarios where, like, you're on a quest and it totally goes sideways with bad consequences. Like the party is not legally liable for that. Like, you get paid or you don't. You go home, you go to another island. You're like, well, that's terrible. Maybe there's like a note in your file. You still get to be part of the questing network unless you like committed mass murder, in which case you're like exiled from the island. But like, yeah, you just keep on trucking no matter what.
Well, that's the Stillfleet thing. You're not legally liable for it with your bosses, but you are morally liable for it, and you're liable with the people who you actually fuck over if they can get to you, or
right.
If
it's CIA rules. It's like you're liable up and down, because it's possible your bosses will actually rat you out and be like, oh, we didn't tell you to kill all those people, or the people who you killed, their like kids will come get you, or you just feel bad. So it is a feel bad game. It's a spy story game. No matter what you do, you lose. The only way to win is not to play, kind of a thing. Summoner's Kingdom isn't that dark, but I do think there's that element of the quests are meant to be shambolic, right, Ethan? Like, it's not really organized well. So in some sense, it has that sense of like the wheels could go off a bunch of different ways, which is nice for the GM, because you do callbacks and be like, yeah, remember those people a couple episodes ago weren't too happy with how the Union resolved the issue with the haunted house. Like, now they're going to beat you up and steal your money, or like, sue you, and you have to do fantasy legal battles, or I don't know. I'm giving you ammunition,
like we're playing gig workers who are sort of fixing problems that are symptoms of a way bigger problem that you learn about during the story. Like, and so it's, can you fix the bigger problem at all? Probably not. How can you plug the symptoms so it doesn't just keep happening over and over again, so that you finish the job that you were hired to do?
Yeah, there's a oh, sorry.
I was going to say that does just feel like life, and that's then you just described being alive to me anyway, and that's what this season felt more like to me. I was like, oh, the only chips in play are not on the table. I can't see them all in front of me, and that's pretty familiar, quite honestly, because I don't just because the schmucks that said what they said to us before said what they said, that doesn't mean that they weren't being told to by somebody else and there wasn't some larger puppeteer pulling everything. So when it becomes less structured like that, it starts to feel even realer. And I'm more engaged with it, because it's like my brain goes, this isn't a puzzle. You can't keep track of a list of facts that you should then be able to use to reason this out. This is an experience, and you need to experience through it, and the play becomes more involved for me. And I don't think that would be everyone's response, but I like it better.
I get what you're saying. I just felt like it's a little slow sometimes, for the reasons, Ethan, you're saying, of like the lore dumpiness, or like it's the tying of stakes to things, because I like working it out, but the working it out I think works in the context of stakes, which don't require a lot of backstory. They just require clear, like, in a way, the tension sometimes I think is the mystery of what the hell is going on with, like, what do we feel about it, because until we know what's going on, we can't really feel anything, which works sometimes. But I think if everything has that character, it means as characters we're not totally sure sort of where to spend our energy. I don't know if anyone else feels that way, but that's, so I think.
I think what you're getting at, Wythe, is the extended bit that we do over and over again, which is really funny, but also really annoying, but really funny, where we are asking a straightforward question and like the people in the world will not give us a fucking answer. And so then we have to like go beat a bunch of people up until they actually tell us, like at gunpoint, which is an extended bit that we just do in every episode.
That's college, right? Am I right, guys?
Like, it's not even college. It's true to life. Like working in any organization, I feel.
Yes.
Any sufficiently large organization. I do have an anecdote to this, but I'm not going to get into it because I would have to explain too much. But yeah, something like this happened.
Is the anecdote would get too deep into the trenches of RL or
of how your work
of my
works.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
Right, but it's like, why do we do things this way? And the answer is either because, or it's they open a door and there's a bunch of bats flying around in a room that all escape suddenly.
But I do think to that point about the peaker, like there's actually other traditions. Like there's the classic everyone in the small town is yes anding you to death, but they're not really telling you the truth, which is different, I think, than kind of no butting you. There's also the idea that like people do tell you and they just themselves don't know, like, which is a more detective story thing of like people have very limited information themselves. And I think sometimes there is a case, I can't believe I'm saying this, but for the clear, fight the bad goblin-esque stakes of like something gets clarified at least momentarily, which doesn't have to remain that way or be simplistic. It's just like for that moment we're gonna fuck that guy up, and then maybe halfway through you're like, wait a second, we're the bad guys. It's the I am legend moment, right? And then you flip. But it's like having the stakes in the first place lets you do the flip. So you know what I mean? You have to be like, oh, I made a decision, and then I realized it was the wrong one. And I think this season to me particularly was like very fun and dreamlike. There was like a Brunwell-esque like quality to the weird College of Magic, but also, which was nice, and that it was, I will say, not Harry Potter-esque. I liked that. But I was personally like just like not sure what we were doing half the time. But that maybe also like after working all day, hopping on the stream and like zoning out. So again, take it with a grain of salt. But
I will say at the very least, like narratively, like DCI Beans being a detective and trying to puzzle things out that refuse to be puzzled. Like at the very I feel like that's where like ire and frustration got slotted in character wise, and it was all good. I will say, like from a like storyline perspective on my end, like I feel like after the fact now there were two like overlapping plots that probably warranted about like two separate seasons to cover everything. And so like if one of them was a dream, like sort of like movement through a magical art college and a war zone at the same, or a potential war zone at the same time, that's enough for 4 episodes. But then also having the subplot of like Yisbedaden, the defender of summer, and this bizarre power play that's happening around here. It's just like it's all lore stuff that I just wanted to get to, because it's gonna like series 2. Like there's like the big changes, like we needed to get to that inflection point, and it's like, oh shit, it's November. Also like, oh man, I'm on a lot of meds right now. We gotta keep track.
I think what was clear was that Yspadaden, because we met Yspadaden first. That's the first thing we did.
Right.
And what he was a pretty cool guy who was like, can you please stop the bad thing from happening that's happening to all of us, and I don't know why it's happening. And the result was we met a bunch of different people who all believed the same thing, was that Yspadaden, through someone else, told them to make all the war stop by like killing everyone who was doing the war. And the answer was they were all doing the war to stop the war, including the guy who made the eye that we were trying to stop, because the eye was going to stop everyone from doing the war, but they're all just misinterpreting. They're just misinterpreting, right? And so it's everyone is hearing the wrong thing, and so everyone is doing exactly the opposite of what the like generally okay but way too powerful guy told them to do.
Right, and I feel like there was like, and I'm glad that did come through, because like it's not just like there are no winners in war. It's also like anybody who even like thinks that like what they're doing, like accumulating power to try and stop a conflagration, is just like there's the You know, that's a road that there is no end to. I do think ultimately, like the actual mechanism, like both as a story device and also mechanically of like the memory wipe, I felt like it started really spiraling out when I started thinking like, oh yeah, crap, nobody's gonna remember what they're doing. Okay, and I think I got really literal about it, which like wound up being story-wise like tight, but then also in terms of like investigation, just totally insensible.
But mechanically, I loved the episode where we went back into the past.
Oh,
Yes,
and
that was great.
Yep, totally.
Forcing us
And we had a goal.
Yeah, and setting us up with like, you have to get to this point. Obviously, that's how it worked. Made total sense, and I think we all leaned in and kind of got it without you didn't tell us that in advance. Like that was really smart. So again, I think there was a lot of good. Like I don't think it was like in any way bad. I think there's just moments of like dreamlike is always dangerous. And I think in that episode, it was like this works really well, you know. But then for some of the stake stuff around who is this villain, what does he want, like that to me was where it's like less. It's like
yeah, absolutely.
Maybe clarity would help the emotions come out, and we could do more with that. But again, some of that is like style and or GMing is different than like improving in that sense. And you're not, you know, it's like we're not telling a story straightforwardly. We're like playing a game. So there is that weird balance of like,
yeah, I feel like after that like episode, Wythe, you and I had a really good conversation over the phone, talking exactly about that, about like how to a certain extent, like some aspects of GMing, because I think for a lot, like, you know, up until this point, I've sort of been running them. I mean, it makes total sense. We've been playing it as a playtest, but I feel like there's now this kind of like. Or maybe like this last season has been this sort of growing pains a little bit of like, oh, this is now going to be moving into like live play territory, which comes with a little bit more preparation. And it also comes with like, yeah, I'm trying to remember how you phrased it. It's like, there's this kind of like the way that like framing things as a GM is like a little bit more vaudeville, where it has to be, you know, crystal clear, even if it's completely bananas crazy. And I think that I was able to wrap my head around, and like I thought that was like a super good way to sort of like frame like the storytelling device of like running a game that has mechanistic effects and like and players have to like follow them, and also then like a plot that like players who are in the dark about it like on like trying to also improv like on camera.
Yeah,
like are able to grok from the get-go.
What's weird is like, because I don't know if y'all know this, and maybe Erica and others who are trained actors can say more, but like I remember from directing, writing, screenwriting class in college, professors talking about the difference between stage and screenwriting, where like stage and screen acting, where stage acting is like you have to really ham it up because you're 50 feet away from everyone and there's people in the back 200 feet away from you, so you have to kind of yell even when you're whispering. You're like, I love you, you know, and it's like it's hard to tone it back in, but you can never really do it realistically. Whereas with video, as soon as you transition to like everyone's shutting up looking at you and there's a bunch of stuff in your face, you have to be really small or else it seems really fake. And so there's sort of, in a weird way, very opposite ways of acting and being. I think weirdly, RPGs are kind of require both skills, because you have to ham up like we're in our minds, we're not seeing anything really, so you have to like really clearly establish those stakes and like major objects. But then in a weird way, it requires us to be like sometimes very realistic and vulnerable with like, what would my, you know, skunk detective character really feel like or care about in the situation? And like if I ham it up, it's just going to be silly. It's like a cartoon show, which is fine for some things, but for this show, it's supposed to be sort of, you know, these are actual characters who actually care about a real society. They just happen to be demons and skeletons and crap, right? So I don't know if that feels true for anyone else, but I thought about that distinction somewhat with
well, and I think it's
challenges.
A third thing, actually, in fact, and it's voice acting, because voice acting, you have to, in fact, merge a lot of those, because for voice acting, you do have to do the very enunciated, very hammy, very big thing that you do when you are acting on stage, even more, because your face isn't seen when you are just a voice. When you are on a podcast, when you are in a cartoon, when you are turned into a three-dimensional character, that character is going to have to do the enunciation for you, and your human face and body can't do it. So you have to do it ultra while you're performing it.
Well, and if you
so
look
that it comes through.
If you look at like the no, I'm not going to say the name of the company, but it begins with the letter D and ends with Isney. if you look at the beginning of any of their VHS tapes from the 90s, they'll show you Robin Williams or whoever standing at the mic being the genie, and everything they're doing with their faces is huge. But that's honestly, that's technique. That's not them doing that for the camera. That's my voice won't sound like this unless I make my body do this thing, because that's really the only way to do it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Voice come from body.
Is true. They connect with breath. Big thing. Many people think of it.
And and then for a recorded thing like this, where our faces are visible on the stream, if not the podcast, we are still presenting ourselves for the stream while doing
the technology's just not there yet. We can't see somebody when you're listening to them. That's wild. Wow. We were just watching this morning some clips of the recording of the initial dialogue for Fantastic Mr. Fox, and it is it's George Clooney and co, like, running through a field. They did the initial recording outside to make sure that they got, like, not only like the ambient tone, but it's like, I mean, it's also Wes Anderson, so he's being like Wes Anderson-ing, but like, then it's sort of like, how would a fox run through this field and get really frustrated, when it's George Clooney being that tiny little fox, and like the effects are like, it works incredibly well. So I get it. I do. Speaking of that, like, what is everybody's, like, what are your, I guess, like, goals for your characters moving forward, or like, what would you like to see or like have happen, like with your personal backstory, or what they do, or like, development, if any? Just like curious about that.
I wanna see us all go to hell. And actually, like, Dante's like famous trilogy that we only talk about one of them.
The cool one, yeah.
Yeah, he fell off in his later records. Yeah.
Paradiso slaps.
No George R.R. Martin.
Yeah.
Purgatorio sucks.
Well, Dante finished it, didn't he? So there's that.
Ouch.
But we should do that. We should all a series of episodes, like there's this side series called The Science of Discworld, where we're like, unfortunately, we're now in the back rooms of the universe, and I don't know. I haven't even been thinking about this. I just came with that off the cuff. I'm sorry.
Well,
I know you said, what would you like to see? I was like, I started with let's go to hell, but like,
I like it. I mean, in Erica, weren't you just talking about this? The in the region of where Fasoli's people are from, in the region of Interhart is the pit of Furno, where the hierarchy of demonhood is based. Absolutely, with minimal changes, harrow it.
Actually,
yeah.
So actually, Ethan does have this in lore.
Wait, Jeff, what were you saying?
Actually, serious thing I was thinking about, though, was if we follow another group for a little bit.
Oh, like shadowing another group from the questing network? Yeah,
just like another group of people who have different origins, so we can explore what that's a little bit like.
Ooh, that's a great idea. Yeah,
nice.
I really
or maybe even those guys we got, the ball guy was actually working for. From the Autumn one.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Brocadia. It was Brocadia account. Yeah, that guy, ball guy. Wasn't he secretly working for some trade union? No, it wasn't a trade. It was like an HOA, but for businesses. What do they call those?
Oh, yeah, the business. He wanted to
like the ESA or
he wanted to sell beast orbs to the militaries of summer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
3 words.
No.
Group brain candle.
Well, I mean, so you want us to hand our character sheets one to the left, which is fun to do.
Wait, I hadn't even thought that far. I was just like, I just got into the sense 8 of it and was like, yeah. I hadn't even thought practically.
One of the classic Escher-esque events in Stillfleet is hand your character sheet to the left.
I love it. I love it. Yes. Correct.
But I also do really like where Jeff, like, it makes me think of like Dungeon Meshi. Like, what about another group that intersects with this? And it's not just team up or just rivals and we hate each other. It's more complex where like there are things that bring us together. It's similar to what Vex is saying in the chat, like classic Greek play, visit a weird place, find a super powerful person who's a slapstick character, have several choruses who sing everything around you. But also there's always
that was the last arc.
That was actually, that was very much. But there's also in Greek plays, there's always like groups of dudes who are like just come back to town and they're kind of mad at like one specific. They're like, I really want to light the little sister of this one dude on fire, but some god keeps bringing me to court to stop me or something. Like the Greek plays were insane. Those guys were all on acid. But I think there's something to be said for like groups of people who like have something that they care about, but they're not just friends or enemies. And I think that is an underused trope in RPGs because of course people want to be their own character until 20th level.
Yeah.
To talk about a thing I already talked about, there's in Rude Tales of Magic, I think probably one of my favorite episodes of that podcast is the party is doing something, and then the actors all suddenly are playing witch hunters who are hunting the party. And so for an episode, they are doing this like police procedural parody where they are all witch hunters. And then at the end of the episode, they encounter the party played by the GM doing really like intense impressions, like intense and like parodic impressions of the characters they've been playing, who then kill all of them. Because they're the party.
God.
Yeah, like for us, it would be like if all of us were playing the teenagers while we get absolutely wrecked by us or something.
Yes.
Go back and be the Beast Orb gang. Yeah.
Oh my God, the Beast Orb gang.
Though we did not kill them. I just want to point that out. We did.
No, you did. Her suit. I think at one point you also like her suit like wanted to just make sure that like they were over 21 before zapping them with a magical scepter.
Oh, with the death ray, yeah.
I think we roughed them up a little bit, yeah.
Maybe they were scared out of a life of crime, or they found it so exciting that they tripled down. One never knows.
Well, I think we pretty much mapped out the next season. I don't know, Ethan, is there anything? So we were talking about like plot, and we've talked about our characters. Is there anything you want to tease or say about your grand designs?
The grand design. I'm gonna never talk in that voice again because it really got in my throat. I did not drink enough tea before I did that.
This is the voice we will use in this podcast.
More nasal. Put it in your nose.
More nasal. Yeah. Look forward to that voice. Like if you can't hear the voice in your eyes while I'm screeching it, like I'm not doing a good enough nasal job. Yeah, I think that like I definitely like for the next round of stuff in 2025. I would love to. It's so tricky because I don't want like. I think that stakes being absolute, and part of the reason that like the Defenders of the Realm even exist, like outside of like narrative and story stuff for the future, is that like having the stakes be universal and absolute against gods. Like I've always felt like it doesn't like it. First off, it justifies a whole bunch of like activity that is like, ugh. And second, there are no gods in Season's Keep. So like I feel like I would love to raise the stakes a little bit for the upcoming season, maybe societally. The first real big bad has sort of like revealed themselves. And I feel like the fallout from that, like however the chips fall, would be a fun thing to start, like after that going back to the Questing Network and going on jobs, like seeing sort of like this other drama start to play itself out socially across the islands as things start getting a little rough. I feel like that would be my master plan, cool goal. What's it like going back to the Questing Network, seeing things, and again, like yes, society is actively falling apart around us, in the real world. But like, I don't know, what happens when things get way too complicated in a magical world on that downslide? I think that's something that would be fun to see.
And may give us some clues for the future.
Mysterious.
And that's when Bessemer discovered her story was just beginning. The end?
Bessemer is
Question
the
mark.
Artful Dodger after they get like ousted by Oliver Twist. That's why Bessemer's so fucked up, because she was leading a gang of children across the streets of London.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
exploiting them, most importantly.
That's right.
I
Can't
definitely-
stay yourself.
We need the prequel where Bessemer is speaking a British accent and also all of us are speaking, like everyone is just British in the past, and it's just a temporal thing. Your
Just
accents all
because
I'm
change.
British.
Yeah.
Oh, shaving a haircut, my lord.
Do you sound like you're from London?
It's like, her suit, you just shaved that man's head off.
It's really not a grating voice at all. It's great to hear, and people love hearing it extendedly.
It's definitely the favourite dialect of anywhere ever.
I did
I'm
this
just
character
saying.
for about 5 minutes on another podcast, and people got so angry at me that I had to bring her back later.
Yeah.
We
good.
This is a little bit beside, but it was a proud moment with running Blister Critters at cons. We decided to change the denouement to it's always done by a different animation company with a higher budget that didn't watch the episode. So I really encourage people after the big climax to describe their character in like a completely different way, doing things they normally wouldn't do because the animator doesn't know. They were given a 1 bullet description. And that was very freeing after each episode to kind of have 5 minutes where people really got to wild out with like, so like what, what does success look like to you? And they got to imagine that, there was always this JRPG or like sort of anime, like they're like ripped and have like a chainsaw for some, it's just like completely different characters. So I kind of like that idea of like, maybe there's, some alt version of us somewhere that we get to run into. Just throwing out ideas for next season.
Tex Avery version.
Wait, what was that?
Let's get the Tex Avery version.
Yeah. Blister Critters SK crossover.
I mean, mechanically, it's right here, low hanging fruit.
Yeah. Mwah. Yeah. Gosh, I think that's all of our time. Holy crap, that's it. I'm just gonna go to bed for a week. I don't, I'm done. I'm done for the year. Psych. I have to finish like 9 illustrations this week. So.
You don't just sleep for a week and then you rip off your Ethan skin and there's a new fresh Ethan underneath. That's like exactly the same.
That's usually like every 2 years or so I get a completely different haircut and I shave and then I look a few years younger and I look like a different person, and then I throw all of my clothes onto a bonfire and I set it on fire. Then I go into the woods and I come back looking exactly the same somehow with the same clothing that I burned. It's very strange.
Ethan, this means we get to go shopping soon.
Yes. It's shopping time. Oh, that's a beach episode right there.
I mean, we've already did a very good one of those, so it only makes sense to do a sequel.
Yes.
Yeah.
Shoppier.
Well, anyone else? Any last words on the Sometimes Kingdom podcast stream to be renamed the Questing Network? Stuck a landing.
Stuck it
is now entering its new year, 2025, and will be. We'll schedule some episodes and we'll post that schedule if you want to join us for the stream. Otherwise, it'll be a podcast.
Otherwise, if you don't want to join us, we'll still do it and you don't have to go.
Please.
Yeah, we don't have anything else to do.
We live here.
We're sepulchered in this room.
I'm speaking for myself. I don't have anything else to do.
We're sepulchered in our tombs, having a grand old time.
All my friends are busy.
During the holiday or
doing
just
the
in
show.
general?
These are all my friends.
Aw. Hi. Wait. Behind there or... Oh.
Well, on that note, we wish everyone's friends, fam, etc. A wonderful end of the year, and we're going to do a new year soon, and it's going to be even better. Ethan has a cute toy.
That thing is floppy.
Is that
It's real
Littlefoot?
floppy.
I think it's an off-brand. I think it's
Wolf is a
small appendage.
Generic Brontosaurus, right?
Tiny Beetle.
It's
You can't call it that, Erica.
Dear kiss your mother with that mouth.
And why the dinosaurs are blue in that one? I'm pretty sure.
I'd love to
Not
know the
even one.
colors. We have more and more, info on dinosaur skin and feathers and stuff. But it would be so cool just to see. We should bring him back, look at him, let him destroy us.
Yeah, they're all Lisa Frank colors.
Recreate
Put them
Jurassic
on
Park.
one island, have a business.
Right.
Yeah,
You know,
like
prop
an
up.
amusement park or something.
Take
Yeah.
a bunch of kids down there.
Yeah, great. I
Meow,
spent
meow,
like
meow,
this.
meow, meow.
Keep glasses of water in the kitchen,
But also still skimp out on everything.
On
Like,
everything.
Totally cheap out.
Yeah.
I
like,
spared
cut
no
corners
expense.
everywhere for some reason.
Except for the computer system, the security system, IT,
But maybe
weapons.
free shaving cream.
All right. On that note, this has been the 90s action adventure movie podcast appreciation stream, the Questing Network, Volume 1, -1, the chat. Thanks, everybody.
Brought to you by Jumanji.
Brought to you by
All right. The end.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Bye, Vex.